Oh, we got a big news video here today with the battle improvements coming to Total War Warhammer 3, and there are a lot of them. Some of these things are stuff that has been requested for a long time since Warhammer 1. Some of these things are things that I didn't even think we needed to have improved and are improved. So a lot of really fun stuff to go through today. We're going to watch this video, then we're going to read through the blog that details a lot more than what is in the video. But in my typical fashion of upfronting the knowledge in my videos as much as possible, let me just kind of give you a bit of a spark notes, or at least some of the really cool things that stand out in the battle improvements that are coming with Warhammer 3. For one, we all know it, we're going to be able to now take off and we're going to be able to land our flying units and take them back off the ground if you so wish after they've been out of combat. So that is a really awesome new ability. Idle units will have a hotkey. It is /, where if you're playing a battle and you can't find a certain unit, there's certain units just not doing anything, you can press / and you'll jump to that unit, or control /, get all of your idle units and just send them into the fray, which is very, very nice. You get a lot of other cool things like formations. So the way formations are going to work is they'll be more like Three Kingdoms in the sense that you can highlight your whole army and then hold down right click and drag out a formation, and it will automatically put melee in front and range in the back and artillery behind it. So if you don't want to get into the nuance of forming your armies, you can just do that. But here's a really cool one. If you do want to get into the nuance of laying your armies out in campaign, well, every time you lay it out in campaign in an actual field battle, it'll take a snapshot of that formation, and when you start a field battle again, it'll automatically use that formation. That is so sick. So from there, you can adjust it if you want, but if that's the standard format you've been going with all of your fights, it's just going to stay there. Really nice. Healing is now going to be percentage based rather than an actual set number, which is also quite nice. And fatigue, like vigor for the most part, well, vigor is going to now replenish or deplete gradually as part of an effect from a skill. So if you have, say, Foe Seeker, it won't immediately replenish, it will gradually replenish. So that's something to take into account. Charge reflection is coming into the game. So if you charge into a unit of spearmen or halberds, you will now take extra damage if they are braced, which is really cool. Spells will now have stuff like, what's it called? Like a return effect. So if you attack someone with thorns now, it's going to do damage to you, which is really awesome. And a lot of other things too. There's health bars that are going to be able to kind of show immediately when something is taking a burst amount of damage, it'll kind of glow and show that off. In addition, the way that custom battles work now, or I think it's also going to be multiplayer battles, but you're now going to select a race, and once you've done that, in lieu of an army painter, you're going to be able to select a faction within that race that will act as the color profile for that faction. So for example, if I've selected the High Elves, I can then choose, Eatane or Kothic or Tor Ivris, whatever I want to do as the color profile for the faction. And to be totally honest with you, I would love a army painter. I think all of us would, but for the most part, I think the majority of people, when it comes to painting their armies, at least in tabletop, you chose a thematic color scheme from one of the lore options, right? You're like, oh, I want to paint my army according to this color scheme because it exists in the book and I've already seen what it looks like and I like the palette of it. So if they did that for all the factions and rolled out a whole ton of ones that aren't maybe even in the game, just say, hey, here's a color profile, I think that could really work. And as far as modability too, being able to just simply mod in color profiles is even cooler. I think, at least I hope we can do that. So we'll see as the game actually comes out and what kind of modability that color profile thing gives us. But that's at least like an in-between between no army painter and some sort of army painter. So very excited about that. So let's go through this video here and then the blog post. If you guys have any questions, by all means, go ahead, let me know in the comment section below after the video. But if you have not yet pre-ordered Total War Warhammer 3, you can do so using the Nexus link in my description. You'll get a Steam key directly from the developer, and it is a great way to support the channel. Let's get going here on the battle improvements for Warhammer 3. We're just going to let this here play. Maybe I always bring the volume down on this a little bit because that way I can speak over it, and also it prevents YouTube from like hitting me with any kind of copyrights or anything like that. It can be kind of finicky sometimes. So I apologize if you wanted to listen here, but I'll pretty much be dictating what he's talking about anyway. So he's going to go into firstly talking about flying, right? press a button, toggle fly, boom, bam, Kairos is just going to land here. And for all intents and purposes, guys, what I'm going over in this video is nothing new. It's just exactly what he's saying in the video. So if you do want to watch that, I don't blame you. He has a much better British voice than I do. So going into the Longmas here, you can see that they've landed and they've charged. Now, I would like to see, he was saying like, oh, they get a devastating charge when they're on the ground. Does that mean that their charge bonus is increased when they're on the ground versus in flight? I wonder if there's a difference in profile when it comes to being on the ground or in the air for certain things and their charge bonuses. It talks about the new bracing UI notification letting you know if something is braced, which is quite nice. I think that's something we've wanted for a long time. And if you're new to the game, you might not even understand how bracing works. So that's cool to see how that is increased. This shows off the new lazy health bars. So basically whenever something takes damage, let's take a look at that really quick. Like a burst amount of damage, watch its health. This other health bar on the left, they don't do this. This one is not blinking like that. Boop. Really kind of gets all wackadoodle-doo. So you can see, changes the little bit of color, gets a little blinky blink going. That's the lazy health bar. Now here's a cool one too that I did not highlight. All right, it's coming up. It's coming up right now. Well, it's going to come up shortly after this. But this is talking about how health is now percentage-based and not as a solid actual number, which is great. And it also talks about how flaming attacks... Let's back that up. Let's back that ass up. See what it says there? This unit now inflicts flaming attacks, which can do additional damage to units vulnerable to fire. Units hit by flaming attacks heal at half the usual rate. That is a game changer. So you can use the Lore of Fire now to shut down healing effectively by just getting a little bit of fire damage onto them. Or you can use all the things that do flaming attacks, you know, like the entire roster of Tzeentch, having them help mitigate a lot of healing damage. That is healing damage, a lot of healing going on. That is so huge. Like, I love that change. And this next one here, this was the one I was talking about. So now, when you cast a spell, the game will automatically go into half speed for you. And I believe this is a toggleable in the options menu, which we're going to take a look at once it pops up right here. Boom. And my voice cracked on that. As a 33-year-old man, it's weird to go through puberty. But you can see here, when enabled, time will automatically change to slow motion while targeting abilities. Not available in multiplayer or when realism mode is active. So if you don't plan on doing any type of multiplayer or anything like that, this is really cool. I will say, though, if you are planning on doing a ton of multiplayer and you are relying on this to kind of help you make your big spells go off at a good pivotal moment in the battle, it can be a crutch, so don't use it. That's what I'm just trying to say. Because you want to get that micro capability down, you want to get that going with yourself, but if you're not jumping into multiplayer, who gives a shit? So on top of that, though, we get some other fun stuff. Marker scale. Default groups to locked, nothing new there. Default run, default guard mode, default skirmish mode for hybrid units, really cool. So you can have it so this is either whenever you zone into a battle, skirmish mode is immediately already active on those units, or inactive, sorry. Then projectile trails, we know what those are. Alliance coloring, default drag out formation. This is the new one that comes from Three Kingdoms when you have all of the melee, ranged, and artillery selected and you drag out. It should put things in melee, ranged, and artillery in that order as far as the formation goes. I think that's what that is. And we'll take a look at the blog. I think that's what they call it. I think they call it drag out formation. But slow motion ability triggering, which we just saw, and then spacebar options on toggle. So, and also as a whole, you can see this interface is different. I don't know if this is superimposed on top like a PNG that was put on top of this in Premiere, but still the actual user interface itself is a little bit different, a little more streamlined. Advice frequency, color profile, neutral color, ally, enemy, player. So your typical kind of setup right there. So cool to see those little options added in. There you go. You can see how it kind of slows things down, which I actually really like. I mean, I don't play much multiplayer these days. I will definitely be using that, especially when you get in those huge battles. So I do really enjoy that. This is for the idle units. I had to listen to what he was saying. So this is talking about idle units here and how you can just simply press the backslash and it will just jump immediately to the unit, which I really like. Or You can use it to cycle through each one of your idle units, as you can see here. And then you get control backslash to just get all the ones active, which is so huge. If you're playing like a Skaven force, a Greenskin force, something where things are fleeing a lot, that's going to be so fucking cool. You get this ability too here with hide foliage is now a little bit better. It actually removes the foliage to a little bit better of an extent so you can truly see what's going on. Then you get occlusion outlines so you can actually see units that are maybe being blocked by a tower, a simple tree, whatever. Even other units, you can see that was happening in some of the battle stuff there. So that kind of sums up everything in this video. We're going to now jump into the blog itself that goes through a much larger list of battle improvements. So let's swap over there. Okay, so the blog details pretty much everything that we just spoke about plus more. So this should be a lot of fun to go into, and it's broken up into different sections. So for battle, yes, they've added flying toggle that allows you to tell units to take off or land, and some flying units such as the Sky Lantern obviously cannot land. Moving into hotkeys though, we've added idle unit hotkeys allowing you to quickly locate units not currently participating in combat or reacting to a movement order. You can cycle between them or select all, which I actually, like I've said before, that's going to be so beneficial for armies that do have a lot of fleeing units as part of their mechanics. Special abilities now have their own hotkeys, which is even better. And guard mode, skirmish mode, and fire at will now have hotkeys. The latter two use a new other unit behavior slot hotkey. Very interesting. Makes sense too because every unit's got guard mode. Not every unit has skirmish and fire at will, obviously, right? A melee unit would not have that. And special abilities now have their own hotkeys. Applies to any bound abilities on the left side of the little scroll or whatever it's called, the interface. So for formation, Three Kingdom formation support allows you to drag a selection of units into a simple formation with a single motion, placing melee units ahead of range units. So again, this was in Three Kingdoms. It's nice to see this being brought into the game because it just kind of makes setting up your army very quick if you have a rudimentary setup you just want to go with. When using the set formation feature, it now generates much more usable formations for quickly sorting your army. And then lastly, in standard campaign field battles, an army's formation at the end of the deployment phase will be snapshotted and used as the default in that army's next battle, which is just so huge. I can't tell you how many times I've jumped into a battle, set my army up in the same exact way every single time because I've got the same exact army. So it's nice to be able to have that kind of quality of life little upgrade where, oh, I've jumped into the battle, same army, it's going to be the same formation, and I can mix things up from there if I want to. But for healing and fatigue, healing is now applied as a percentage of max health per second rather than a flat value. Healing can now be stunted by inflicting any amount of fire damage to the target, massively slowing all healing effects for several seconds. Now, thinking about this from a campaign perspective, that's going to be huge, right? You're going to be able to do any kind of fire damage depending on the faction you're playing, and it's really going to be awesome. Now, even looking at this from a multiplayer standpoint, it's going to make certain units a little bit more viable because they do fire damage, and that adds a little bit of an accessory to their overall functionality and their return. So I really like that improvement or that change to the game. It's totally new, right? We didn't get that in tabletop where you did fire damage to something and now they can't be healed as well. So it's a different kind of mechanic, and I do like it. And I don't know if it was maybe added in to spice up the demons or whatever it is, but it is pretty cool nonetheless. I'd like to see how it works before I make like an ultimate judgment on if I like it or not, but I like it from a thematic standpoint. Fatigue modifying abilities now take place over time instead of all at once, allowing an ability to slowly drain vigor from an enemy or restore it all at once. This is immediately obvious with the common foe seeker ability on melee heroes and lords. So rather than it being an instant pop heal of vigor, it will be a slow and steady one. For bracing, we get charge reflection for long weapon units, so halberds and spearmen, allowing them to inflict extra damage when attacking units that are charging them, which is very, very, very cool. I like that now bracing has a little bit more impact rather than just giving you charge defense. Units that are braced now show a status icon in battle, allowing you to quickly tell which units are safe to take a charge. For spells, added an option to automatically take the game into slow motion while you aim an ability or spell, which we just saw. Very huge fan of that. Magic resistance has been reworked into spell resistance, which only applies versus actual spells. This means that magic attacks are no longer often a hindrance, which is very spicy. New Thorn spell effect, including a rework to the Lore of Life spell, Shield of Thorns. You can see a little picture here for Kairos and what he looks like on the Select a Lord menu for the campaign. Imagine he'll be doing his typical kind of dancing. And again, I like this UI. Very different, right? Not every time we've played Warhammer 1 and 2, it's been the Rome UI, right? So this is a different UI entirely, and I kind of like it so far. I wonder how the rest of it looks. I'm very stoked to see how that kind of plays itself out. That UI, man, that user experience. So for health bars, introduction of lazy health bars. These react to incoming damage by highlighting the new value and draining to it over time, helping highlight sudden large bursts of damage. This does not change how the damage is actually applied. So you'll see the damage, it'll go gray, and that bar will kind of like deplete to show you that it's a huge bunch of damage lost. Unit health bars in the battle space now have ticks denoting these 75, 50, and 25% health thresholds, making it easier to eyeball when a unit is about to activate health-dependent abilities. Particularly useful in the wounds ability now shared by all single entities. So that will be really crucial. And it'll also be nice too to know, hey, okay, my Hydra's at this level of health percentage-wise. I know that this ability is going to kick off pretty soon. It'll be overall very nice. And I would like to see how that works for health or healing caps. I don't think I ever really paid much attention to it. I actually don't think we had healing abilities in the Brass Citadel thing, campaign or little thingy. So I'd like to see how healing caps work on this bar. Is it going to be the same as it did in Warhammer 1 with a little thing on top, a little nodule on top? Or are we going to see some sort of different notification of your healing cap? So very interested on that. Stats and unit panels. You can now see the entity mass stat and the entity size tooltip. This gives you an idea of whether or not an enemy's your unit's going to be bulldozed over by, say, a chariot or something big smashing into it. Abilities, attributes, and resistances can now be expanded into a more readable list in the unit info panel. This is something we looked at during the Brass Citadel. You click a button and it just gives you a list of everything that you can highlight over, a little bit easier to understand. 3-tier unit system is now visible on the unit info panel, allowing quick eyeballing of relative unit quality. Now, people were wondering if there is a 4th unit tier. It looks like there is not. There's only 3 unit tiers. So 1, 2, and 3. So for custom battles, like I was talking about earlier, sub-factions have been removed from custom battles, quick battles, and replaced by having you pick your race and then selecting your color profile from a selection of notable factions within a race. So very, very, very stoked on that. And I said custom battles and probably multiplayer. But the fact that it says custom battles / quick battles tells me it is both, indeed, not just one or the other. So custom battle maps can now be searched and filtered. You can now tag favorite maps to be moved to the top of the list. This is super awesome, especially for people like myself and Turn that run any kind of multiplayer tournaments. We can now just have all of our maps favorited, so we don't have to cycle through the list to try and find them all. You can now change your unit size setting in the custom battle lobby instead of having to globally set it in your options. Also very awesome. Improved army preset saving with filtering, searching, and being able to view only specific races and battle types. Also very awesome for setting up quick multiplayer battles. We've added a new unit browser as a sister page to the spell browser, allowing you to pursue the full rosters at any point. Quite spicy. Peruse. As you've seen in some of our posts, there's also been a general overhaul of the UI for the various menus, from new games to campaign and custom battles, info screens, and profiles. So very, very excited to see what all is coming with Warhammer 3. While it's been cool to find out each and every race's new campaign mechanics and their legendary lores and what their lore has been, all that's been really fun. But to me personally, after playing this game now for however many years, through 1 and through 2, now into 3, it's really cool to see which of our older systems are making big changes. The siege changes, the spell changes, the Winds of Magic changes, and now this. These things are really exciting to me because it makes the game play entirely different and new in some way, shape, or form, right? The jump from 1 to 2 was not that huge, right? It wasn't that different of a game. But we're seeing now with 2 to 3, almost every core system is being touched upon and changed in some big sort of way. And I'm really all for that. It's going to make Total War Warhammer 3, in my mind, feel very fresh. And it's going to be something that's going to be easier to play for extended amounts of time. Because if 3 gets the same amount of support as 2, at the bare minimum, that's going to be a huge amount more of content, right? But I would expect 3 to get even more long-term support because it's the last iteration in the Total War Warhammer series. So I expect this to be very spicy once we can finally get our hands on it come February. But as always, guys, if you have any questions, any concerns, let me know what you're feeling. Like, do you really like some of these improvements? Do you feel like some of them actually kind of make the game easier, or it feels like cheating? Whatever it is, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for watching here today. But have a good one and take care.